Your mic's hot.
All right. We are coming to you live from Olympic Valley, California. I am Finn Melanson. This is my co-host, Brett Hornig. This is our very first night in a studio setup that we are going to be embedded in, I believe, for the next 9 to 10 days. The first order of business is races that are on the docket tomorrow through Sunday, the Broken Arrow Sky Race Series. In this episode, we're going to be previewing the VK. But before we get into that, Brett, this is awesome.
Dude, we're here.
We're here.
We're here in Tahoe. We've been we were starting this one a little late, but that's okay. It's dark outside. Our lighting will be a little better tomorrow.
Yep.
But, of course, what is first time doing all of this without a whole bunch of technical difficulties, but I think we've got everything pretty ironed out. This is going to be our home for the next 10 days.
I'm really excited. And I think before we get into the X's and O's of the VK race, we should just recap to the audience what our afternoon and evening has looked like, because this has been a pretty awesome just setup to the whole weekend here. Like, talk about like the studio build and getting into the Airbnb, the group run, stuff like that.
There's a really big bug trying to get into the house right now. It's distracting me. Sorry. The studio build. I mean, it'll probably be a little bit of a work in progress, but at the moment it looks pretty cool. Like, we've got some fun sponsors who provided some great studio content for us. Behind the camera it's a mess, but that's okay.
Yes.
It's all about what's in front of the camera. We're the worst looking ones around the studio.
Our good friend and frequent collaborator here at Single Track Leah Yingling says in the chat, you guys are going to be haggard by day 10. That is very much true, although we did do a nice media long run about 6 weeks ago at Cocodona. So I have strong faith that we may be haggard, but we're going to make it.
Yeah, except at Cocodona, we were on the primetime schedule. Like, we had it easier than anybody else there. But I think probably by the time we get to a few days before Western States, we're going to be making all sorts of mistakes with names, and it might be hilarious.
Well, let's talk here about the VK. I think a good place to start is just basic. What's exciting you about this race? You've been somebody that has frequented the Broken Arrow Sky Race Series for many years, I think since its inception. So what comes to mind there?
So the VK has probably been one of the races that's maybe, if anything, like evolved the most over the course of Broken Arrow, because it never really qualified as like a true VK because it was always too long. And I think this is the shortest VK course they've ever created, which is really exciting. The amount of snow on the course is also very interesting. But the other thing that we kind of noticed too when we were looking at the fields is how probably wide open the races are if the people that we think aren't racing don't actually show up tomorrow.
Yeah, if you're here to do a little bit of research on Fantasy Free Trail picks for tomorrow, which we will link to if we can in the show notes, there's a lot of interesting prizes on the line, but a lot of people that were last-minute scratches from this race, a lot of familiar household names. We'll get to it in the men's and women's previews, but that's a great point. Yeah,
so this VK course, it's 3 miles. Last year, I think it was 4. And the mile that got cut off from last year to this year is all in the first half. And that's actually what makes this year's course really exciting, is just looking at the course profile. The first mile climbs 1,500 feet. So you get half of your elevation in the first mile. It is a straight line up to the top of the KT22 lift. And that's definitely the steepest first mile that they've ever had.
Yep.
What's really interesting, though, about the course... let me see if I can actually just pull this up.
And while you're pulling that up, I'll just say one more thing about this race that interests me, and it dates back to last year's event. Different disciplines get packed into this race. Last year in the men's race, for example, you saw Eli Hemming and Cam Smith go 1-2. Cam Smith is a world-class ski mountaineer. Eli Hemming's a world-class triathlete. They came to this race and took care of business. So it's one of those places where Similar to the 200-mile races at Cocodona, different disciplines can come in and find success.
Yeah, we got some skiers in the race this year. We've got a couple track stars in the race as well. But I think we've got the course map pulled up. And so what's interesting is, so the first mile climbs about half the elevation, 1,500 feet. The second mile actually nets downhill a little bit. So you run along the ridge line, and then so you run this first mile in 1,500 feet of gain, which is insane. And then you have to somehow be able to haul ass slightly downhill on a flat mile before entering the third mile, which climbs a little over 1,100 feet. And that third mile is all on a ridge line, and you do go across you go up the famous like Broken Arrow ladder, and then that's not actually the top. It continues upwards through like a giant snow staircase where they kick in all these stairs, and then that's where you get to the summit. But normally you kind of find a climbing gear in a VK, and you just like hold that red line the whole time. But this doesn't quite fit the normal VK runner, whereas like you have to be able to run a really fast second mile in the middle, which maybe could play into some of these other, athletes with a little bit more leg speed, but they have to survive a super gnarly first mile that has 1,500 feet of gain. And there's kind of a dance to navigate that much elevation gain on snow.
Yeah, one of the things I wonder is how much continuity in the lead packs in the men's and women's races are we going to see after that 1,500-foot climb in the first mile? Like, how much attrition is that going to cause versus, previous year's courses where maybe there was a bit more continuity? I'm very, very interested to see what that does to the race.
Yeah, there might be. This course might actually lend for a decent amount of room to make up in the second half. I wouldn't be surprised if the person that's in first place to the end of the first mile is not the person who wins.
Bit of interesting beta here in the chat. Kobe Jones says, I did the first mile this afternoon. The snow is soft and moves under your feet. There will be scrambling. Very interesting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, too, the race starts at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So, yeah, that's going to have a couple hours of the snow to just soften back out again.
Yep.
So, yeah, it might not be great in terms of the actual footing conditions. What did Leah say? Our text is small, but it's there.
It says, similar to the vertical course in Innsbruck at the World Champs, had a very runnable middle mile and a half, but again, a very punishing first mile. So similar context.
Cool that we're getting a World Championship style course in the States.
And World Championship style live chat commentary. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is so good. Should we run down some of the fields and some notable names, notable absent people? What do you got?
Well, I took a couple notes that I wanted to run by you just on overall race strategy. I was doing a rewatch of last year's VK here with Corinne and Dylan on the commentary. Awesome drones and follow cams, but saw a lot of similar caliber runners deploying very different strategies. Some people were jogging the entire course. Some people had poles. Some people had no poles. Some people were hands on knees. Is there a right way to execute this from like a form standpoint, or is it just kind of like whatever floats your boat works?
I think for the VK, it's like whatever you do to make you feel like you're putting the most power out there. Like for me, if I'm racing this tomorrow, I'm 100% going poles, especially because of the snow. Like I did the 50K in 2019, which was the last year where there was like a similar amount of snow, and the poles helped me so much on the climbing with the slushy snow. So I think poles would be a huge advantage in the VK tomorrow.
How about generally when you think of overall strategy in VKs from just like a where to make a move type standpoint? Are you a fan of seeing these runners go flat out, conserve a bit, draft? I'm watching Tour de France, so it's like pulling the train a bit.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect to see? What do you like to see? What looks like a smart race in your opinion?
Coming from a lower altitude, I have a hard time changing gears up here. So like from like a low elevation standpoint, I'm like hitting that red line and just holding it all the way to the finish because I have like no room for anything else. We have a lot of people in this race coming from altitude, so they could pace it a little bit smarter. So like, you know, they might not be quite at that red line and actually have room for like aerobically another change. So that almost sounds opposite, you know, that like the person coming from lower altitude would be the one to front run it and just like hammer from the gun. But I feel like that would really be my best chance of survival, whereas someone coming from altitude has more room to just kind of play around with the actual tactics.
Yep.
Which is like what we saw last year. I think we saw 2 altitude people on the men's side duking it out.
Yep, and I think 4 of the 5 top male finishers were from altitude as well. So it's just one of those races where you expect that sort of advantage. One thing that interested me rewatching last year's VK was you would see in that final third of the race, for example, where it was Eli and Cam duking it out for first, you would see Eli make a move with a quarter of a mile left to go. And you're thinking to yourself, that's it. That was the move. But being new to VKs, I didn't realize that even in that quarter mile, there's still probably 5 or 6 moves between the 2 runners left to be made. That's a fascinating component of this race that we might see tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, if their last mile is, you know, under 15 minutes, that's pretty fast, which means their last quarter mile is like 3 to 4 minutes. So you're making a move 3 to 4 minutes left. Like there's room to recover and counter move.
Yeah.
So like you got to time your NOS button, you know?
Which makes Allie McLaughlin's win last year so impressive because she was in a complete and total race of her own, on her own plane of running. There was no one in sight. Cam Smith, by contrast, was in 15th as late as I believe halfway through the race and came back and won. So depending on the race, there can be quite a bit of real estate. So I don't know. The race strategy part of this fascinates me.
Yeah. And I think ultimately really what it comes down to is that like just that aerobic engine, like how much oxygen can you actually bring in out of the air here and supply your muscles with power.
Is this a VO2 max test? We were talking about this offline.
Like a true VO2 max test is shorter than a VK, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that if you had the VO2 maxes of, you know, the top 10, it would more or less be in descending order from highest to lowest. Because there seems to be, you know, that's why we see a lot of Nordic skiers, you know, transfer over to the VK so well, because like they have a really big engine. Like it's not so much running, but just like laying down power for 40 minutes. So, you know, I think having a high VO2 max definitely comes into play way more than like a high, you know, lactate threshold or, you know, the ability to go long. Because at the end of the day, the race is under an hour.
Should we get into the men's field here?
Yeah, this one's so there's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty stacked field, but there's a lot of question marks, you know, from the research that has been done. Huge shout out to Aid Station Fireball for helping us out.
Seriously.
With this, you know, a couple of the big question marks are like Darren Thomas, Andy Wacker, both appear to be coming back from injury. Like if they were healthy and running strong, I'd immediately have them in my picks. But I just like I don't see enough like evidence to throw them in my picks.
Yeah, we had the fortune of doing a group run tonight with Andy Wacker, and he had told us that he had Hagelin surgery back in January. He's had a long-standing Achilles injury, and I think he's just starting to ramp back up. And then Darren, I think on Strava, we saw him roughly 5 or 10 days ago say, I think he made a post on Strava saying something to the effect of just ran 10 miles pain-free. So I think he's still in that early small win, build back up phase as well. But Darren, again, if you want to go back in history, go check out the 2021 VK race here at Broken Arrow because he put on an absolute clinic if and when he gets healthy. I don't think that that's tomorrow, but if and when he gets healthy, he's one of the absolute best.
Yeah, agreed. So with, you know, with those two kind of heavy hitters potentially being out, I feel like this race gets left somewhat wide open. Like I see, we both wrote down, some different sets of names
Yep.
that all have a shot of winning tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, I think one of the other concerns I have is just there's a lot of people on the men's start line, same with the women's start line, that raced Worlds in Innsbruck, Austria last week, and we are seeing evidence on Strava that some of them have made the long travel over to California to hop on the start line tomorrow, but there are some key European racers with strong results that we're still not sure of. We haven't seen any evidence on Strava. If they're there, certainly they're a factor. I'll name a couple people. Morgan Elliott, the guy has just been a racing machine the last 4 or 5 months. He made this hard push in almost every single possible Worlds qualifier race to get on a USA team. He was at Sunapee, he was at Sonoma, he was at Formidable. He went through the entire gauntlet, finally got that spot, was in the up, down, and vertical race in Innsbruck. He's going to be here tomorrow. We know that for sure. But he didn't have the best Worlds weekend in Innsbruck, and you got to wonder, does he need a break, or did all of that racing serve him well, and he's in incredible shape, ready to rock it tomorrow? Because, again, and I feel like a broken record, go back to last year's VK, he finished third place, hard charging. If there was more real estate in that race, that guy was he was looking strong. So he's definitely shown evidence he can perform at a high capacity here, but that's just one of them. So
yeah, and who knows? Maybe Worlds was just the off day, and because all of his other races were pretty solid.
Fun guy to watch.
It was an aggressive run at Lake Sonoma.
Yes.
But then Sunapee was fantastic, and yeah, I just can't imagine what the jet lag is like coming back over here, and it's only been a week.
Yep.
That's not that long, but who knows? Maybe the legs are rested and ready to go. So you can't count that out.
One other thing, and I know that I'm kind of going backwards, but one of the cool things about these sub-ultra distances, particularly the VK, is just how many times you can show up on a start line in a given year. Maybe you could race 20 VKs in a year. I don't know, maybe the number is even more. But it's cool to see a lot of people that have already raced 6 or 7 or 8 times, even last weekend, saying, yeah, the legs are ready to go for this week too.
That is one of the beauties of the sub-ultra, is you get more. The number of racing miles in the year are similar. You just get to spread it out over way more racing opportunities.
Yep.
Which, that does make it really fun. And that's where I could totally see, a legit, circuit or a league. I could see that existing in the sub-ultra world way more than ultra.
Yep.
Because you could do, a dozen races in a season.
Hey, it makes our job a lot more fun when we get to see this many races happening so often, and great names on the start lines. I'll name a couple more here. Familiar names. Patty O'Leary just won the Dipsy last weekend. It's a very impressive race in the San Francisco Mill Valley area. He's a veteran of the VK. He's gotten anywhere from 8th to 14th place at this race. He's raced this 4 times in the last 7 years, so he loves Broken Arrow clearly. Jesherin Small, up-and-comer. He's been a part of that Gunnison, Colorado Western State University trail team. Also came through Adidas Terex, got second at the Canyons 50K this spring to Hayden Hawks, which is a different discipline, but I just see his stock rising. He's worth mentioning here.
Some might argue that fitness is fitness.
Fitness is fitness, as you would say.
Yes. So,
but those are 2 more. Who else you got in your list?
So, an interesting name is Tyler McCandless, who just won the Vail GoPro Games 5K, but he also ran a 62:53 half marathon in February and has a 2:12 marathon PR. That's some pretty serious speed. That's about as much speed as you see coming over to trail, on the American marathoning side of thing on the men's side. So I don't believe he's competed at Broken Arrow before in the past, so I'm really curious to see how he does in just a true VK format like this. You got to have a big aerobic engine if you're running 62 minutes in the half. The big question will just be if the power is there in the legs, because it's a pretty different muscular movement. Yeah. But I'm really curious to see what Tyler McCandless does. Jackson Brill is another exciting name.
You know him well.
Yeah, Jackson Brill Trails and Tarmac coach, living over in Bend, Oregon right now. He got second at the Breakneck Point Marathon, which qualified him for the Worlds team, where then he was 30th at the short trail race in Worlds. What was amazing, though, is his splits from Worlds at the short trail. It is at the first checkpoint, he was in 99th place and then moved steadily up the whole day all the way up to 30th. So that was like a very
Textbook.
super smart race. And I mean, to some extent, you get to throw most of that out the window for a VK. But just looking at Jackson's training, though, he's done some like super gnarly verti days. So I bet he's getting pretty excited at the idea of just getting to hammer for like 40 or 45 minutes. Who else? Noah Williams was 10th at the Sunapee Scramble VK and 5th at the Breakneck Point. There's a lot of Sunapee Breakneck returners.
Yep.
And then some international runners that are going to be lining up. Zach Hanna from Ireland, he was 27th at the World's Vertical, but was 5th at the vertical race in 2022 in Thailand. And looking at some of his past race results, the 27th this year in Austria is actually more of the outlier result. So if we're averaging together most of the results, will probably be better than a 27th equivalent.
And
tomorrow.
One more thing on Zach. We've confirmed Zach is here in the States. He's in San Francisco right now. He's part of the elite athlete panel tomorrow. So if you're wondering, Zach Hanna, European athlete, has been in world's competitions. Is he going to be here this weekend? Yes, he will be. So expect him here.
The one that we're not unsure of is Andrea Rosten from Italy. He was 14th at the vertical race at Worlds this year, but couldn't find any info if he's made the trek across the pond to Palisades, Tahoe tomorrow. But 14th at Worlds, that's a great recent result. I hope he lines up because that would make the race very, very interesting.
That's one of the next innovations that I'd like to see in trail running coverage is some sort of way for these social networks to deliver us the most verifiable evidence of whether or not someone is racing. With these Europeans, you could be making a pick. You could confidently say someone like, Andrea is ready to rock it tomorrow if he's here in Olympic Valley, but we don't know.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of the easiest things could be like, the race director would reach out to all the athletes and say you have to declare within X number of days that you're racing or you're not eligible for the prize money.
That's really good, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone does that or not, but yeah, you could just say like, if you don't tell us that you're racing within 4 days of the race, you're not eligible for prize money, which there's a little chunk of change on the line to the first one up the mountain.
How much are we talking?
Dylan, was it $2,000? $2,000.
Wow.
$2,000 to the winner. Paying down to fifth. Yeah, paying down to fifth place. So
and we've got something on the line here today too.
Oh yeah. Well, of course we're going to be participating in Fantasy Free Trail.
Of course.
But we're going to kind of do a cumulative across the 3 Broken Arrow races and Western States.
Yep.
And Finn, if you win.
So we've got 4 races. We've got the VK, 23K, 46K, and the Western States 100.
And we're just going to go most points.
And we'll go race by race, I think. So we'll do our Fantasy Free Trail picks for the VK. If I win the VK, you buy me a case of Liquid Death. If you win the VK, I buy you the equivalent amount of Gatorade Limon Pepino.
Yes, I want the Pepino.
And we just keep running it back through the 23K, the 46K, and Western States.
So there's potentially 4 cases of Liquid Death on the line.
And or Limon Pepino.
Yeah, whatever the equivalent number of fluid ounces of Limon Pepino Gatorade, that's what you're going to be getting me when I whoop you.
And if you follow Single Track or you've seen any of our commentary at Bandera, Black, Canada, Cocodona, you know we love Limon Pepino. You know that we love Liquid Death. So there's a lot. There's more than just pride on the line here. There's something that we love on the line.
Yeah, and Leah's just going to be laughing at us because she's probably going to smoke both of us in all the picks. And Maybe then, if that's the case, then she gets liquid death. And
If Leah is still watching, maybe we can raise the ante and get her involved.
Yep. Who's your podium?
All right, my podium is Zach Hanna, Jackson Brill, and then Noah Williams. All three of these runners bring international worlds level pedigree to this race, not necessarily in the VK. Noah Williams, for example, I believe represented the U.S. at the 40K distance in Thailand in 2022. Likewise with Jackson Brill in Innsbruck recently. But I believe these three runners don't just bring VK talent to the table. They're just overall versatile runners. And there are parts of this course that make you need to be a versatile runner. Like you need to be a very strong hiker, runner up extremely steep grade in that first mile. You need to have turnover in that second mile. And then you need to have guts in that third mile.
In that second mile, it's not like flat like a dirt road. Like there is some cruiser sections, but there's also some technical rocky bits. So you got to be a little bit reckless too.
Yep.
Which is why I'm going to go with my boy Jackson Brill for the win.
I don't hate that pick.
Did you see the pictures of Jackson after Breakneck?
Yes.
Yeah, like he looked like he just rolled down like the rat jaw climb at Barkley or something.
He was their marketing material.
Yeah, like it was just, he had just cuts and scrapes all over him, and like that kind of grit is good for VK. So I'm going with Jackson for the win. I've got Zach Hanna second, and then Morgan Elliott third. I think Morgan bounces back from Worlds and just runs out of just like angst.
I like that. Yeah, Morgan's a really fun guy to watch. Again, for any folks out there that want to watch the VK from last year, he had an amazing third place finish last year. And
and Morgan's familiar with Broken Arrow, as is Jackson. Jackson, I think, got fourth or fifth in the 46K.
So basically, our VK picks are coming down to a switch in the 1-2 and then flyers in the 3 position.
And the only reason I left out Andrea from Italy was just out of me being unsure if he's actually here or not.
Likewise.
If I could get a guarantee that he was racing tomorrow, that would change my podium, I think.
Likewise.
Should we move on to the ladies' field?
Yep. We'll lock in our free trail picks after this episode. But I'll just read off a couple bits of somewhat breaking news here in the women's field. I think one of the biggest storylines in this race is how many big names aren't racing. A lot of these people are not racing just as a function of having raced Worlds last week. So you have Bailey Kowalczyk, who has had a really impressive start to 2023. She got first at the Gorge 30K, second at Breakneck. That's what got her onto the team in Innsbruck. She did DNF the 46K race in Innsbruck and is not going to be here this weekend. Appears that she'll be resetting, resting, getting ready for the second half. Grayson Murphy is out. Grayson Murphy is now a world champion again after Innsbruck. I believe she is just taking well-deserved rest. Ali Ostrander, I believe, has been battling injuries for the majority of this year. She is out. We believe, there's no confirmation there, but we believe just based on social media trends and Strava, she's out. Maybe the biggest name, at least in the history of this race, Ali McLaughlin, who's our 2-time defending VK champion in 2021 and 2022, had a tough Worlds. Maybe wonder would there be a quick rebound here, kind of like Morgan Elliott. No, she is out per social media. So a couple big names there, not racing.
Yeah, I think Ali McLaughlin's status on the Free Trail Fantasy updated like 10 minutes ago, where the name has been switched to a strike through. But yeah, that's a kind of a bummer because Ali was the 2-time defending champ of this race.
But if you're watching this right now, if you're one of the 13 watching, if you're watching tomorrow morning before this race, this is key news. We're saving your fantasy free trail here.
Yeah, it's true, because you can make picks all the way up like until like an hour before the race, or maybe even a minute. I'm not sure, but there'll be time to watch this with your cereal, your oatmeal, your Costco muffins that we have 900 of. Finn's like, I'm gonna go to Costco and stock up the Airbnb with food. He comes back with a pallet of muffins and 900 bagels. Finn, did you get butter? No.
Did you get cream cheese? No. But I got peanut butter and I got almond butter.
You got 2 different types of nut butter, but you didn't give me any cheese. We have burgers tonight. We had no cheese. Were you lactose intolerant? I'm the one who's mildly lactose intolerant. Up here, preventing me from eating my cheese.
I'm correct ingredient intolerant.
You must take another trip to the Costco in Reno tomorrow and buy me one of those 3-pound tubs of cream cheese. Oh, wait, we got to clear space in the fridge. I got to drink 18 more bubbly waters to make room for the cream cheese.
Rest assured, for anybody out there watching, we are eating good here at Single Track HQ, but we are missing some key ingredients. I'm going to hop down to Tahoe City in the morning. Okay, Brett, just a couple other familiar household names, since this is oftentimes an ultra trail running audience. Amanda Basham is doing the triple. That means she's doing the VK, 46K, 23K this weekend.
As is Natalie Chergwin.
Natalie Chergwin. Amanda Basham, I mean, we've just seen great consistency and large training volume from her on Strava. We believe Amanda Basham is devoting most of these next 2 or 3 months to UTMB, and I'm just assuming that similar to what we saw with Hillary Allen at Speedgoat last year, doing the double there, I'm sure Amanda is treating Broken Arrow this 3-race weekend as sort of a training stimulus push for UTMB.
As they say, you got to jiggity check yourself before you wreck.
Couple other familiar names. Eo Wang. If you followed trail running at any point in the 2010s, you know Eo Wang, one of the best. Seems to have been out of the game for somewhat of a stretch, but won the Crown King Scramble earlier this year. That's an Aravaipa event. Seems to be low mileage right now in that 35 to 50 MPW, but doing specific training, it appears. We saw on Strava about a week ago a double TAM effort, which seems to map to the demands of this type of race. So you have her. And then finally, Aroa Sio, another familiar name in our scene, has raced a lot this year, but raced long stuff. I think this is somewhat out of her wheelhouse, or at least what she normally does, but she's here, and according to Strava, has also reconned some of the course. So for any ultra trail fans out there, those are some familiar household names in this race.
Yeah, I imagine Aroa is here with the craft team as they, go through Broken Arrow, get ready for Western States, because Aroa ran Western States last year and then went on to top 10 at UTMB, which was one of the better doubles. So
yes,
Aroa is definitely very much like a 100-mile specialist.
Yep.
But fun to mix it up in some of these shorter distances. Speaking of dropping down in distance, one of my favorite names on the start list is Cocodona 250 champion Sarah Osazuski.
Can you say versatility?
Versatility. I mean, shoot. Cocodona 250 champ, no more than it was the beginning of May. It wasn't that. It was like 6 weeks ago.
It was 5 or 6. Wow, 5 or 6 weeks ago tops.
Yeah. Although, I saw Sarah went up Eldon like a couple days after she won.
Yep.
Cocodona. So that's I'm rooting for Sarah. Just going down from 250 miles to 3.
I'm always impressed by people that can just move from race to race, and they just love the game so much that it just works out. And I think it's going to work out for her tomorrow. I don't know where she's going to be in the standings, but great to see her on the start line.
Oh, yeah.
And a fantastic Cocodona, by the way. That was one of the most textbook, if we can even say textbook and 200-mile racing in the same sentence, she did that.
Yes. As of right now, textbook.
As of right now, textbook.
With what we know about 250s, textbook. A couple other names that, maybe lesser well-known, but have some great results. So a Canadian, Madison Sands from the Vancouver area. This was a deep cut aid station fireball send over, which was helpful. The notable result that caught my eye was FKT on the grouse grind. I've done the grouse grind a couple times.
Really?
Oh yeah, I love the grouse grind.
Tell us about the grouse grind.
So it's like, I think it climbs 3,000 feet in like two and a bit miles. It goes up. Grouse Mountain is up in North Vancouver, and it's a little ski area. Like, it's pretty cool. You can take public transit from Vancouver.
Nice.
And go ski on it. They do night skiing. It's awesome. But they have a gondola that goes from the bottom to the top, or I guess, from the ocean up to the base of their mountain. But underneath the gondola, they have a trail. That's the grouse grind. And what they actually have is they have a full chip timing system set up on it. So you can go to the little ticketing office, buy a chip, you tap it, and when you tap it, the clock has started. And you race up the grouse grind, and then you tap your chip again at the top, and it compiles leaderboards. So there's like results from years and years of grouse grind, and every day is just a fresh day. So like you could get the fastest grouse grind of the day. You could have the fastest of all time, like Madison Sands does. They have competitions for like the most in a summer, the most in a day.
That's awesome.
You just take the gondola back down. It's like the coolest thing I've ever seen, and it was really hard.
We can do something similar in Salt Lake at the Snowbird Ski Resort. It's not nearly as notable or celebrated, but you can do hidden peak laps and take the tram down there, which is kind of cool. Maybe we could start up a grouse grind equivalent in Salt Lake City. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool area. But so that caught my eye. I was like, if you're the fastest to ever do the grouse grind, you're good at running uphill. Anna Gibson is another really fascinating name. Anna Gibson is a new member to the trail team that's headed up by Andy Wacker.
Yes, shout out trail team.
Anna's ran, maybe just recently finished competing for UW, or University of Washington, for track and cross country. Has a 2:03 800 PR. That is very fast. And everyone who describes a VK just says, oh, it felt like I was running an 800, but it was for 45 minutes. Well, this person actually has the fastest 800 PR of the field. Yeah. So ipso facto, if you're good at running the 800, you might actually be good at running a VK.
Question, given all of the big names like your Graysons, your Ali Max, your Ali O's that are not in this race, is Anna the highest caliber athlete left in this women's field in your opinion?
So, what all the names that you said, what they all had in common is that they all ran D1.
Yeah.
Cross and track. Of the names left, this is probably the highest performing, on the track. In terms of like who had the most decorated collegiate career, I think that's Allie Ostrander.
Yep.
Because Allie O won the steeplechase 3 times, I believe, at NCAAs.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to see what Anna Gibson does. And then we've got a couple Sunapee Scramble returners. Carly Rempel was 4th at the Sunapee Scramble VK. So, that's just a recent solid VK result. And then Laurel Moyer was 5th at the Sunapee Scramble VK. So another solid VK result. So those are just 2 people that have already run a solid VK this year. So if they are as good or better than when they did those races, they will be right up there at this race.
Awesome. Who are your picks for Fantasy Free Trail here?
So this might be a hot take, but I think I'm going. Oh, Carly Rempel's also a Canadian runner.
Cool.
I'm going Canadian one too. I think Carly Rempel's going to win, and Madison Sands is going to get second. And then I'm going to give round out the podium to newcomer Anna Gibson.
So I think similar to our men's picks, it's going to be different positioning that's going to be the difference in our outcomes. I've got Anna Gibson number 1. I've got Carly Rempel 2. So a little bit of a switch up there. And then my flyer pick is, and I might incorrectly state this last name, but Nicole Miracle or Nicole Miracle, 10th here last year, 5-time OCR world champ, ran the 3,000 meter steeple Olympic trials back in 2008. And I think the steeple has long been a predictor of decent trail success. Grayson Murphy is sort of the latest example of that, but that's my podium. And I'm willing to bet Limon Pepino and Liquid Death on it.
All right, I'm looking forward to drinking nothing but Limon Pepino for the rest of the summer. I'm gonna get so many cavities. Yes, that rounds off. That rounds out the VK. I guess weather's looking pretty favorable for tomorrow. I mean, I think it's not going to be too hot. It's not going to be too cold. It'll be just right for a VK.
And last year, on that note, they had to delay the start of the race by 3 hours because there were 55-mile-per-hour wind gusts.
I remember that because I was down here with the Trails and Tarmac booth, and it was pretty shitty. It was really cold. It snowed on the top of the mountain for the 46K last year. And it was, just like windy and snowy, and like this weather's so much nicer. And I've been at Broken Arrow when it was horrendously hot too. So there's actually going to be some really nice racing weather tomorrow and all weekend, which, this VK preview, this is the first of many. I mean, we'll be back here. What do we got going on tomorrow?
Tomorrow's our first action-packed day, so we have this episode going out, being published in the morning for viewers and listeners. Then we'll go out in the field. Our team of photographers and videographers will be staged at various key points of the course, capturing photo and video footage of the top, let's say, 3 to 5 male and female runners. We'll then go back to the studio, cut up that content, and organize it in sort of like a summary fashion on social channels. And then, of course, we'll be back here again, hopefully earlier in the evening. I'm thinking like 4 or 5, maybe even earlier, and doing a recap show of what we saw in the field.
Yeah, I don't want to do these at 10:30 every night.
No,
I only got one of these.
Special occasion because we were setting up the studio. But yeah, we'll do the recap show probably mid-afternoon, early evening at the latest. And then we also hope to get some athletes back in the studio here tomorrow night just to talk about the day and to use a free trail phrase, just talk trail culture. So
that would be great. Okay, I got to figure out how to turn off this thing. I never practiced what the off button would be on here. So
let's see what we got in the chat. Just a couple more things. Courtney Does Walter says that's a screen name there. I'm just reading it verbatim. Hot take: you're more of a masochist if you're a VK runner than if you're a 100-miler. What do you think about that, Brett?
It's funny. Yeah, the 100 miles is a slow burn of pain where it's like, this was really nice, and then you're like, this isn't so nice anymore, but I'm just kind of really tired. VKs, you're making the decision to like make it really hurt for 40 minutes and like that kind of pain, and then for the next 3 hours they'll just be coughing with track hack. So I kind of agree with that hot take, because like that kind of VK pain, like you have to just lean into it so much, and it sucks. So kudos to all the people tomorrow getting after it in the VK.
Maybe a couple closing housekeeping items here. We love the live chat, so thank you so much for showing up. Thanks for contributing. Leah here says, who's going to dethrone her as the Broken Arrow overall fantasy free trail champ?
Yeah, Leah got all the stuff last year.
Leah got the stuff. So we've got the champ in the chat, and she's calling everyone out. Maybe it's us, Brett. We've got good data at our disposal, so maybe we could do it. Although I think Leah has that data too, so I don't know. But a couple other things, just a couple thanks to the sponsors. Number one, Rabbit. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. I love this gear. They've been a long-time sponsor of the podcast. They are making this possible. If you look in the background and see that neon pink Rabbit logo, they're here. They're making this coverage possible. Head over to their website. Use code SingleTrack20 at checkout for 20% off your next order. It's great apparel. It's trail running apparel. It's all we're wearing. I've even got the jog around sweatpants on. I love these things. I actually think that my favorite thing that I've discovered in this past year is the jog arounds.
Are you going to get married in the jog arounds this summer?
I might. If we town hall it before we do the ceremony stuff, I might go in some jog arounds. What else was I going to say? Yeah, and Morton is another sponsor. You'll see a lot of cool Morton stuff up here. One thing that I want to highlight, because I don't think they're necessarily known for, is their energy bars, the Solid 225, which is just a cool name. We'll probably have some fun with their naming conventions over the weekend too, or the week. But I love their energy bars. Go check out Morton. We don't have a discount code for you there because I don't think that they do discounts, but it's a great product. We love it. We know a lot of people out there in the field use it. I was telling a story to Brett earlier today about how Arling Glick, who is one of the top contenders at Western States, has said that his nutrition plan for this race is Coke and then Morton 320 the entire way. No joke.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. And Morton 320. So, I don't know, Brett. You want to say anything about Hoka?
Oh man, yeah, Hoka being one of the sponsors is so cool. They've been a company that I've gotten to see grow so much because I come from a specialty running footwear industry, and slanging Hokas back in 2012, 2013, a lot different than slanging Hokas now. They're much more refined and like put together, and they've got a lot of really fun shoes, and a couple that we'll get to talk about later on in the week too. But they're just they're a really fun company to work with, and they have a ton of amazing events set up for the week leading up to Western States, which we'll get into that a little bit more, probably starting Monday. But thankful that they believe in us as much as we believe in them. And also huge thanks to Features.
You're wearing a pair of Hoka Torrents right now.
Yep. Got my studio shoes. Studio shoe pair number 1.
Yes.
I've got an even more special occasion studio shoe from Hoka ready. It's lined up. It's ready to go. I don't know which episode I'm going to bust them out for yet. But
Western States.
For sure Western States, but maybe even something before. Hoka employee, Hoka Hickson, he knows exactly what pair I'm talking about. So those will come out later.
Check out the Hokas and all too when it comes out. I believe next month. Brett and I have reviewed it. It's incredible.
Yep, that review will drop in the next whenever I finish editing it, which is definitely not this week. And Features.
Yep.
Features, they've been my go-to Ultra Sock for 7 or 8 years now. I've never worn a pair out, which is cool. I always just lose them.
Probably because someone stole them because they were jealous.
Probably. I don't know who would want. I mean, well, yeah, they're great socks. We've got a lot of socks. We're gonna be doing some group runs in a few days. We're gonna have some things to give away. So we want people to come running with us. More information on that. So stay tuned.
Hopefully by tomorrow we'll go scope our ideal trailheads and locations for this stuff. But we'll put out a group run announcement probably tomorrow.
Yeah, and we gotta see how gnarly these trails are. But yeah, I think that's everything for this one. We gotta go get some sleep.
Brett,
and, I gotta go write some training.
Yeah, well, seriously, huge thanks to Brett. Brett really put a significant contribution into this studio being possible, and also thanks to Dylan who's in the background, and we've got a lot more crew, and Maddie
and Mike Tamayo
for the graphics, all the
graphics
overlay you're seeing here with Single Track Live and the sponsors and that green lightsaber. This is all Mike Tamayo work. So we couldn't do it without a huge number of people making it possible. So I guess this is us signing off for now, but we'll be back tomorrow. And we promise better time zones, better starts and finishes.
We just wanted to get this one out there so that way people would have something to watch in the morning.
Peace.